Hello. Well, Melanie Benson here. This is our third in the series that we're doing on how magnetic messaging can transform the results of your marketing. And it's such an interesting time to be talking about marketing because half the world is like double down on your marketing and the other half of the world is like, I don't want to hear anything about marketing and growing my business because we've got a virus that's taking over my life. So hey, wherever you are right now, whatever you're doing, just know that now is a really important time, especially as thought leaders and people who are wanting to share their message in a bigger way. You're wanting to attract more clients. If you have your own business, there's no better time to be present to what is in the minds and the hearts of your clients. What is it that they are struggling with? Okay. So today I want to talk about why you're doing all the right things and it's not working. So let's just put aside the current environment. Over the last few years, I have noticed that a lot of people are doing all the right things. They're getting themselves on podcasts. They're getting out there doing webinars. Maybe they're even speaking at events. They're writing emails. They're doing social media posts, but it's not working. So if this is you, just give me a little shout out in the comments and let me know that's what's going on for you. Because I believe that if we can actually solve this problem, we can actually start to increase the number of clients we serve. And I'm sure that on your mind right now is, how can I help more people? How can I get paid to help more people, right? Okay. So today, this is all about what I call my ROCS method. And ROC stands for relevancy, outcomes, celebrity, credibility, and specificity. So that's the ROCS method. And we're going to be talking a little bit about what the biggest mistake that experts and newbies alike make when they're getting on podcasts. It's one of those, why you're doing all the right things, but it's not working. All right. And today I also want to hone in on one particular piece of the Get Magnetic messaging system that seems to elude a lot of people, especially if they have a lot of heart and a lot of passion for the work they're doing. They tend to avoid this one particular thing, and avoiding it is why they're not getting the leads and sales from all their hard work. So let's start with the mistake. I want to start with, what is it that you're doing wrong, or that maybe you're not doing enough of, that's causing you to put all the right energy in but not get the right results. And this is a little bit of a marketing 101 conversation. And I think it's important because if you are going to take Get Magnetic Messaging with me when it starts in a couple weeks, it's really important you remember this, because when I've been working with clients around how to develop a talk that sells, or how to create podcast interviews that magnetize clients in, or even like how to write emails and get the right language in their marketing materials overall, what comes up over and over and over again is they're missing these important pieces. And this is the ROCS method: relevancy, outcome driven, celebrity, credibility, and specificity. So let me tell you what the C is and why this is important. Actually, I'll start from the beginning. So relevancy is your message really connecting for the listener in what they're struggling with the most right now? What I see happen a lot is people get excited about a topic or they've been doing something really well for a long time, and they forget to evolve the message to meet people where they are today. And another way to look at this is it what they need or what they might want, right? So people buy what they want, not what they need. And so if you're missing this in your messaging and in the conversations you're having and in the way you're structuring your marketing activity, chances are people are not even hearing you right now. So relevancy means, do you know how to craft a conversation that entices someone to want more because you're talking about the thing that's front and center in their mind anyway? Outcome driven means, are you focused on the outcome they're wanting, or are you getting so caught up in your features and your process and in the like the things that you know they need to be doing, and you're missing the key sales ingredient, which is outcome. People want outcomes. People they get excited about what's possible, whether it's solving the problem or taking them where they want to go. So if you're not outcome driven, chances are you're wrapped up in how much time you're giving them, whether or not, they're going to get access in a group or private, really getting stuck on your method or process. And the number one way people do this is, especially coaches and consultants and service providers like accountants, right? They get stuck on, I'm going to give you my accounting services, rather than what does that person really need and want. Okay. So I'll give you an example of that. Let's run with the accountant piece. So an accountant might say, hey, I'm an accountant and I can do your accounting for you. And that might work for someone who's looking for an accountant. But what's really powerful is, how would you like to free up another 10 hours a week and uncover miss or dormant money that's hiding in your bank account right now? That is an outcome, right? So I did several things: relevancy, outcome, and specificity, which I'll talk about in a minute. Those are vastly different statements, and they're going to have vastly different impacts. Now, let's talk about celebrity credibility. Okay, so you may not be a celebrity in your industry, but you have credibility. And so the reason why I put celebrity in there is that celebrity sells. Whether we like it or not, the celebrity energy, someone like, oh, they're famous, oh, they've got a book, they make lots of money, they have this, they have that, they're on TV, right? Whatever that thing is, brings a sense of celebrity. And whether we want to believe it or not, like I've seen this over and over and over again, celebrity sells. It sells fast and it sells big. And you can have a really mediocre topic and a mediocre way of delivering value, but if you're a celebrity, it sells. Like, I literally have watched people with really big names be completely boring and have a line out the door, and it blows my mind, right? I know you've seen that too. So what we have to do as mere mortals, right? Like people who are everyday people who appeal to everyday people, is we have to know how to craft some of that pizzazz by boosting our credibility and our authority. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And hosting your own podcast is one way, writing a book is a way. There's a lot of ways to craft that type of boost for yourself. You just have to know what it is that appeals to your listeners and your audience. And even if you have none of that, I guarantee you there's something in your history and in your expertise or the results you're creating that we can pull that out of. And it's one of the things we do in the Get Magnetic Messaging program, is we uncover what that is for you and how to showcase that in your talk, so it doesn't feel weird and slimy and salesy, but it educates the listener why you're an authority in this particular area, and you're someone who they can trust and should pursue to get that solution. All right, and now specificity. So specificity is the difference between connecting and developing deep rapport and someone just glossing over. And this is becoming more and more important right now. You might have noticed a huge shift in a lot of the way marketers portray their message by telling stories. So stories are one way we can activate specificity. And specificity is painting a picture that someone can see themselves in. Now, here's an example. So one example is, when I started my business, I struggled for the first 2 years to make money. Okay, you get the point. The second example is, I found myself one day in front of my computer, looking at my bank account and looking at the stack of bills and wondering how what was in my bank account was going to cover the stack of bills. At that moment, my revenue was stuck at $1,000 a month. And guess what? I live in Los Angeles. So not only does $1,000 a month not cover the bills, I couldn't even pay rent on that. So I was going deeper and deeper into debt. And do you want to know what the solution was? That would be an example of specificity. Okay, so a specific story. Another way we can use specificity is using numbers and details in our titles and in how we deliver things. There's something about specificity that pulls the listener in and engages them differently than when we just skim over the top of a story. I know a lot of people think like, I am being specific. Well, I can tell when somebody's being specific or not because it sounds like everything else out there. Okay, and that's when you're not being specific. So that's the baseline of the ROCS method. And you've probably heard some of these things. I'm doing all this stuff, like I know what I do, but people are just tuning out. They're not buying. And when I went through, what I call the messaging version of the audit, so I literally would go through and evaluate all their messaging, what I found was they actually were not using the ROCS method properly. And so they were skipping over the connection point that a client needs, a prospect needs to lean in and want to buy. So that might be the opportunity for you if that's where you're at. Give me a little shout out in the comments and let me know which one of those you think you're missing. I'd love to hear. And what are you trying to do right now to fix that? Okay. So there's a couple other pieces of why your marketing may not be working for you. And I had one of these conversations with a client not too long ago. She was feeling kind of downtrodden and worried about what was happening in her business. And she felt like she was doing all the right things. And she certainly had been doing a lot of the right things, but she was missing this one thing, and that's consistency. And so you can do a lot of the right things, but if you're not consistently getting your message in front of your target audience and you're not consistently being seen as the kind of like the dominant force in your industry around your message, like if you're not getting out and being visible and spreading that message big time, then you're being invisible. Because erratic messaging, especially if you're newer and you're really trying to drum things up, is not as powerful as consistent messaging. I'm going to see if I can find this little gem that a friend of mine threw down the other day. We were having a panel about the what's happening in our industry right now with the virus and everybody working from home, and he said this really, really valuable thing. His name is Ken Bader, and he said, we need to social distance, but we need to be social visible. So we can't afford to withdraw from visibility, but we do need to withdraw from social contact with people. And I thought that was a great distinction for right now, because a lot of people are withdrawing from everything. And I think it's a real mistake. When times are tough, you need to lean in even more. You need to double down on your visibility. You need to double down on investing in your marketing and your own mastery, and you're staying in front of potential clients. Even if you just keep the basics going, you can't afford to withdraw your presence. And here's why. Because it'll be 10 times harder to get that machine flowing again when things get back to normal, and you'll be behind in clients, and literally things will stall out. So consistency is so important. You might notice for me, we have an e-zine that goes out every Thursday. The podcast drops every Monday. It goes live on the show page on Wednesday. We are a machine around that. On Instagram, we're pretty regular with the themes we have each day. And here in the group, we've really worked on consistency as well, having a daily engagement opportunity, a daily post, a daily connection opportunity with everybody, right? So we got to keep working that consistency for you. What's that going to look like for you? And here's where in your podcast interviews and virtual summit interviews, and when you're doing things online, here's where consistency plays a super important role, is consistently using what I call showstoppers. Showstoppers are little 3-word segment messaging hooks and statements that you use over and over again consistently that draws people in. Okay, draws people in. It gets them to really kind of stop whatever they're doing, because most people are multitasking, and really go, okay, wait, what was that? And you might even, like we call it the rewind factor, right? Like they want to rewind and hear it again. And now they're really looking for the answer to that thing you put out there. Okay, so I covered that in the last session. You can go back and listen to it, but that's a really important piece of the puzzle. Now, let's go dig a little bit deeper into one of the mistakes that we make in podcast interviewing that ties into the ROCS method. So if we're doing all these right elements, we've got relevancy, we're outcome driven, we have really positioned our credibility, and we are keeping the S going, right? Like we are getting that engagement, and we've got the specificity. Then the thing that happens for a lot of people is they're getting the middle right, but they're forgetting the end. And the end is an actionable takeaway. And there's a lot of different ways we can use this. It doesn't always have to look like asking people to buy something from you or giving people a freebie, although I really highly encourage that, especially on podcast interviews. But give people something to do. And mastery looks like you're seeding that throughout the interview itself. Like I've seen some people doing some really clever things where they have a challenge in every episode of their podcast. So the guest comes on and delivers a challenge to the listener, where that challenge, that action that you encourage them to take, gives them something valuable in return. So maybe they're going to qualify for a prize, or they're put in a raffle or something, right? So asking people to take an action. First of all, we're conditioning people that it's okay to take an action. Good things happen when we take an action. And then secondly, when it is time to invite people to get on your list, you want to give them some kind of a great, valuable gift or resource, then they know that this is something that great rewards come out of it. They're getting something valuable. And so forgetting to give actionable takeaways is one of the single biggest blow it moments that I see people doing. And part of it is because you're nervous. Part of it is because maybe you didn't think it through ahead of time. Like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And part of it is you're just not used to thinking about asking people to take an action. And so when we do this actionable takeaway, first of all, it's got to be valuable for them. And secondly, it's got to get them on your list in some way, shape, or form, or somehow get into an action that gets you in contact with them so you can develop more rapport. You can evaluate, is there something you can do to help them, and potentially transition that into a sale. So if you've been out there on podcast interviews, you've been out there doing virtual summits and giveaways, or whatever the thing is you do to attract leads and build your list, if those aren't turning into clients, chances are your actionable takeaway is broken, or you're forgetting it altogether. And so that's the second piece of this puzzle, is do you have actionable takeaways that actually are compelling and get people to want more from you? And that's something most of us have to test over and over and over again, because it's not enough to just do it. We've got to actually like figure out how to do it so that it leads people to an outcome they want. So that's today's session. And I'm wondering, as you're listening into this, are you noticing where maybe your breakpoint is, where your, I call them your lead leaks? Like, where are you leaking leads and missing a piece that's not translating to the client needing that from you, from the lead wanting more from you? Do you know what that is for you yet? If you didn't go through my 17 mistakes report, I would recommend doing it. Okay, it's free. You can grab it at getmagneticmessaging.com, 17 mistakes. Sorry, I said that wrong. Getmagneticmessaging.com /report. That's where it's at. And if you know that this is something you want to work on, I want to invite you into my Get Magnetic Messaging program that starts in 2 weeks. We are doing a very small group process where the group is working together to create the right title, the right topic, the right talking points, and the right showstoppers and the right offer to pull people in and turn them from an interested listener to an active buyer. Like, I want you to really make this your best year ever for client attraction and really attracting leads and building your list and also like getting authority from being on podcasts, for showcasing on virtual summits, like whatever this is. Look, virtual rules right now. Like, everything is shut down in our world for in-person events. So we want to keep growing our businesses. We want to keep serving our clients. We want to keep making money. You're going to have to quickly pivot or double down if you're already using virtual, but you've got to make sure you're standing out. Okay. If you're not standing out, you're not going to get the results that you need and want. It's going to be too easy to get lost in the noise that's going to happen in this industry. So I really hope that you will take this time where things are maybe not as full as they normally are, or maybe your business is slowed down a little bit. Reinvest in you, reinvest in your knowledge, your mastery, and your ability to articulate what you do so it's compelling and it's necessary. Okay, that's really a powerful piece of this is, can you help people understand how necessary what you do is and why it solves a problem they can't afford to keep? And if you don't know what that is, I totally get it. It took me a long time to master this as well. Let's do it. Come into the Get Magnetic Messaging program, getmagneticmessaging.com. And one thing I would tell you about the program is we are offering 50% off the April event. And we decided to keep the early registration as the full, for the full way through to enrollment, because I know that a lot of people are dealing with some uncertainty right now. And so if that will help you say yes and work this process right now, so that when everything picks back up in a couple weeks or a few weeks, whatever that is, or a couple months, you are ready to master and conquer podcasts and virtual summits and all the different ways that we can use the virtual environment to attract more clients and get our enrollments back up. Okay, so getmagneticmessaging.com. You can check out what's involved. I'll tell you who it's not for. This is not a program for you if you are a master at sales and you are somebody who every time you get on a podcast interview, you end up with a boatload of clients. Like, yeah, you might fine tune your offer a little bit. I think you got this nailed down. It's also not for you if you have absolutely no idea what your business is and you have no traction at all, like you haven't gotten anything figured out. I would like for you to figure out what your offer is and kind of get a sense of what you do before you come in, because I think there'll be too many things for you to figure out to get the most out of this 6-week program. And the last person that I think it's not really for is if you are not willing to make some changes and go through a process to find your authentic message and power. It is a process. I'm going to guide you through steps to pull it out. Look, I could do it for you, but it won't have the same power if you go through the process and I pull out of you along the way what is really powerful when you say it naturally, when you do it naturally. Like, that's why I love this program. There's a lot of interactivity and a lot of group experience so that we kind of get that momentum from others getting their clarity and you get yours too. So there's a lot of personalized attention in the group processes that I think you're going to find really, really helpful. All right. So getmagneticmessaging.com. We are closing the registration next week. So if you want in, you need to get on board now. There's also a couple of time sensitive bonuses that wrap up in the next few days. So make sure you jump on it if you want access to some podcast booking accelerators. All right. All right. So we will be back in touch soon. And please let me know whatever questions you have about getting your message out in a bigger way.